Hello. You may remember the Yandere Simulator once had a different character model and development. It was bigger, better, and fresh. People were expecting major change in the visuals of the game. Unfortunately, it all fell apart. Some time ago I was given a file which supposedly contained the very same alternative character model showed by Alex in one of his progress updates. I had examined it in one of my previous videos. It was interesting to see that model in close details. However, during my examinations I came to conclusion it was very unlikely to be original. In this video I will show the alternative model for the main character again, but this time it will be a little different. Thanks to initiative of another blogger I now have the original file. You may already know him. It's going to be a short comparison of a bootleg to the original mesh. Let's begin. On the left you see the original, on the right you see the bootleg. But before I take a look at the topology, I'll examine the file contents first. Unlike the extracted bootleg, the original has a locator item with hierarchy called armature. This is a skeleton for the mesh. It means the model is rigged and ready to be animated. Just look at the amount of locators. I won't get deep into it, but I'll get back to this matter later. Now, the meshes and their topology. We can already notice the differences in the shape of the figure, the stance, and shading. I'll have to detriangulate the mesh to make difference in topology visible to untrained eye. That's much better. Let's begin the comparison. First, the hair. It doesn't seem to have anything different other than mismatches in topology, which were caused by detriangulation. I could have done it more accurate, but I have better things to do with my time. Next is the uniform. The difference here is very noticeable. The topology on the left mesh is much more dense at the shoulder. It also has different edge flow, more suitable to be deformed. This part was made with the idea that these edges will move away from each other when the shoulder bends downwards. The bow. It seems to be separate from the surface of the shirt. It also has more polygons, so it doesn't look too rough. Here are more edges around the chest than the right model. More geometry implies more animations and deformation being applied at that area. The belly also shows totally different edge flow. It seems to be made this way to concentrate geometry at the back. It's important to do so. When the character bends forward, lack of geometry may create unpleasant deformation. Next are shoes. They seem to be completely identical, with the right ones having wider gap between them. However, there is an element with a bit of extra detail to it. To me it's a little bit too much for a piece which we never get to see up close, or do we? You may have noticed there is some background geometry peeking through it. That's because there is a fully modeled feet underneath, completed with fingers. Model on the right though, looks like it crossed Yakuza to have all of its fingers chopped off. It's quite interesting to see how much detail the feet have. Look at the number of edge loops around these little sausages. Now, let's move to the body. The original mesh has the whole body underneath the uniform, while the bootleg is cut to pieces, like Yandere Chan's rival in the dumpster. It's also shaped with more curves, while the other one has skinny detached legs. Interestingly, the body has the edge flow and density in the same fashion as the uniform. It also has armpits. Looking at the topology of knees, I'm rather disappointed how it was left without attention. I'd expected to have the same kind of transition to a more dense geometry, instead of uniform loops. That's all for the geometry. Time to get back to the rig of the model. As I have mentioned before, the model is rigged completely and can be animated. Let's take a closer look at its skeleton. Seems like everything is in place. Even the skirt has bones. Breasts do too. It's completely normal. Now, let's test the rig. What a nasty booger. Seems like a couple of vertices are not attached to the locator that controls the head deformation. Let's see how the eyes work. It looks decent. Notice how gently the fall-off moves the highlights around the iris. Next, I'll try the shoulder. Given its topology, I expect something nice and smooth. Unfortunately, it's disappointing. The body peeks through the uniform mesh, and the deformation is pretty rough. Look how sharp the armpit gets. Arms don't look too pretty either, but that's expected given that it has not very optimal topology to be bent like that. Let's see how the rest of the body parts work. The only thing left to look up is the unwrap. The bootleg and the original file have the same unwrap for the hair mesh. In case of head and body, it's very different. The body of the original has head merged to it, but they overlap on the UV layout. I assume they would have different materials applied to them. The uniform is very different too. Original mesh has its unwrap concentrated on the right side of the coordinates, leaving big empty space on the left, while the bootleg tries to occupy as much space as it can. The original model is a lot more complete and is fully rigged. There are still some minor things that need to be adjusted, such as the skeleton joints, topology flow at some areas, and unwrap. It's a decent work, but it requires some polishing.